Hello everyone, I'm Gráinne Mullins, founder and CEO of Grá Chocolates. Welcome to the second episode of Simplified, where we demystify financial topics with AIB Life. In this episode, we'll be talking financial planning and wealth management. Financial planning can be daunting, especially for small business owners who are already spinning plates. So today, I'll be joined by experts from the world of tax, investment, and finance to explore how you can make your money work as hard as you do. As a small business owner, I know I have tons of questions around this. So if, like me, you want to learn more, stay with us for the next 25 minutes or so as we unpack this topic. With me today is Garrod O'Sullivan, Head of Tax at Chartered Accountants Ireland. Garrod will be explaining what businesses need to do to prepare for the November tax deadline. We're also joined by Anne-Marie Mulpeter, Financial Planning Specialist at AIB, who will be discussing how AIB helps small businesses with planning in the run-up to November and beyond.
Hi, Gráinne.
Finally, we're joined by Darragh O'Brien, Investment Manager at Irish Life Investment Managers, to explore how investments get your money working harder with less risk than you might think. Garrod, I'm going to start with you. The November 19th tax deadline is looming. Most businesses are head down, just focused on getting through the season, but it's also a reminder that we can be smarter with our money. So how can we get our money working harder?
Yes, so there are different considerations for sole traders versus company directors, but for both directors and business owners, there are overlapping opportunities to claim various tax reliefs. So with tax filing season coming up for individuals, the most important thing is make sure you file your return on time, ideally before the deadline. That's the most important thing, just to manage your tax risk fundamentally. But then I suppose when you are looking at ways to minimize your overall tax bill, there are some, I suppose, quick wins that are there. So health expenses are one, a broad range of treatments you get from a qualified medical professional, and certain dental as well. But again, you just need to be careful of the rules there. Tuition fees, so third level fees are available, especially if you've got a couple of young people in college by now, or if you've gone back to study yourself. Again, there's opportunities for relief there. Nursing home costs are another one, and obviously that's a big expense for people, and there is tax relief for that. Certain payments you make on foot of certain things can be tax deductible also. And again, it's just looking at those. There's also a broad range of tax credits depending on your personal circumstances. And Revenue's website does a pretty good job of sort of setting that out, and even just Googling something, a particular expense or credit, and revenue.ie will give you actually quite a good bit of information, and it's probably the ideal way to search for some of that as well.
In our last Simplified, we talked about auto-enrollment and pensions as a form of tax relief. How important are pensions in this regard?
So pensions, I would say, are one of the cornerstones of I suppose, a person's financial health, and I think it's one of the areas that many people either shy away from or just think, I'll start that at a later date. I'm maybe too young to think about this, and I think that the attitude I think we're trying to change here with things like auto enrollment are actually getting people thinking about pensions soon. Contribute early, contribute often. That's probably a good way to think about it. And the pension tax relief in Ireland is decent enough for sole trades, but if your companies can make very strong contributions on behalf of their employees. So what we would often, one of the real benefits, say, for incorporation of a business would be your ability to really start funding a pension strongly. And indeed, for people who are operating in sole trades, there's opportunities to have companies servicing those trades, but that's getting into a bit more tax planning that you could discuss, again, with the appropriate advisor. Maybe one other thing worth mentioning just on the tax relief front as well, and making your money work, would be things like the Employment Investment Incentive Scheme. And I think that's an area where if you have money, so you put money in your pension, maybe you're maximising your tax-free contribution at that stage, and you have a bit of excess cash, or you want to have that money that may be accessible, maybe in a slightly shorter time frame, the Employment Investment Incentive Scheme gives tax relief of up to 50% of your investment as well. So that can be potentially another great tool for people. That's not as widely known as I think it should be as well.
Thanks, Garoj. You talked about excess wealth. I think everyone, small business owner or not, would like to have that extra cash. What you do with it once you have it is the key to making it work harder. Dara, investing is a scary word for a lot of people. What are the common concerns you see around investing?
Probably a few common concerns. I'd say number one is our understanding of risk. And I think that this tends to be the kind of major blocker for a lot of people when they're considering what to do with their money. We generally tend to have an idea that, money in a deposit account has no risk attached to it because the balance stays the same. And if we do something else with that money whereby you see the balance kind of fluctuate, that has a risk involved, right? And I think that what we miss out in that is the idea that over the long term, there is more risk than just that idea of kind of volatility. And if I explain, in Ireland at the moment, we have about 170 billion on deposit, just in personal private accounts, right? It's a lot of money for a small population. 90% of that is on overnight rates. We haven't even put it into fixed term. And the average interest rate that we earn on that is somewhere in the region of about kind of 0.2%. Over the last 5 years, inflation in Ireland has hit 21% cumulatively. And what it means when you put those two things together is even though the balance in your savings account might have stayed the same and not moved, the actual real value of that money, what you can exchange it for, has reduced by about 20%, right? But because the balance stays the same, we don't see it as a risk. If you move to the investment side, you do see the balance change, right? And in the short term, we do have these volatility periods. So at the moment, we've had uncertainty about tariffs from the US policy administration side. We've also got this kind of idea about what's happening on the AI side, and we're moving from extreme optimism on one side to kind of pessimism on the other. And all of these kind of changes have an impact on the value of an investment in the short term. But if you zoom out and you have a good investment strategy and you take some good advice, what you see is that the kind of short-term volatility patterns that you see smooth out over time and move into a situation where you get this kind of slow upward growth. So if there was one key thing for a small business owner to bear in mind when it comes to considering investing is think about more than just capital risk. Think about the inflation risk that you're exposed to, the damage that does over time. And if you can find a way to diversify some of your savings out of that and into an investment that grows faster than inflation, you can begin to build wealth over time for your own future. And as Garrod pointed out really well, that long-term benefit of making sure that we're well positioned to look after ourselves as we get older and live in a more expensive economy over time is really, really important for, everything outside work that we want to achieve.
Absolutely. So if a small business owner is looking to invest, what would this look like for them?
I suppose the main things that you need to consider are try not to keep too much cash in low-yielding deposit accounts for too long, right? You need cash for day-to-day, emergencies and just as a kind of sensible backup precaution. Anything excess, you really need to kind of get it working harder than inflation. It's only at that stage that it actually grow a bit of wealth, right? Secondly is to make sure that if you are going to invest, you need to get two key things right. You need to realize that time horizon is really important. So time invested in markets in a broad and wise, diversified strategy will really help build wealth, right? And it reduces a lot of this kind of volatility risk that you see. And the second thing is just to make sure that you're not overly concentrated in one particular thing. If you see a value fluctuation in something that all your money is exposed to, it's going to have a fairly high effect. If there's something in your investment portfolio that even went to zero, it's not a problem for you in the long term if it's only a small portion of it. And one of the key ways of navigating how you begin to do that is by just getting some really good advice by your side.
And Dara, you just mentioned time, and you've mentioned time, and it comes up so much with Garrod and yourself, and this is a journey for customers. And really what we're saying is for small, medium enterprises, growing you to come in early, because the longer you leave it, the harder it is, or the more expensive it is going to become. But get advice now on your 1 year strategy, your 3 year strategy, 5 years, 7 years. And like that, with the financial advisor, we take them on the journey through that advice and be able to make recommendations to beat inflation and to get a better return on their money that may be sitting there in cash, losing money or losing interest for them.
That definitely gives me a lot to think about. So for those investors, what are the 3 key things to keep in mind?
I would say first and foremost, and it's coming back to what I mentioned earlier, it's that key of good advice, right? And when I mean good investment advice, people might naturally think that an investment advisor's job is to pick an investment fund for you, right? The reality is the value that an investment advisor will deliver to you goes far beyond that. It's about understanding your time horizon. It's about understanding your attitude and your understanding of what we spoke about, kind of risk, the value of money, what you want to do. And it's about making sure that your plan is correct, that your expectations are right, and that your expectations are met over time. So it's not just, when I say advice, it's not just find somebody who can pick you a fund, right? Time will do a huge amount more, generally speaking, than what particular investment fund you might happen to pick. And it's that kind of compounding effect over time. I think one of the reasons that investment tends to be stacked against us is we're not really enthusiastic about this notion of getting rich slowly, right? It's not a bad thing to do. So let kind of time do those pieces for you. I think the next thing that you need to do is just to make sure, as I said, that you're not overly concentrated in one thing. If you ever speak to anybody who had a really bad investment experience, you generally find that they were kind of overly concentrated in one thing.
Not to put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
This is what you're saying about the risk profiling we would go through with the client, you know, that you're carrying a different risk, that and different clients from a risk level of 1 to 7, depending on age and profile and everything. So that's the independent advice that they would get, which is good.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, the whole idea of a good investment strategy is that you're comfortable enough to remain invested for the long term and you don't rush for the exit or the wrong time. And I think the third thing is, and this is where I really believe that the SME population has a natural advantage, is that if you want to stay invested, you have to remember that in the long term, economies tend to grow because people get up every morning and start businesses and drive forward businesses that solve problems in a better way, that find more productive use of capital, that innovate and that kind of naturally drive the economy on, right? If you are invested broadly in the same economy, you can see the long-term trajectory of that. So that natural optimism that you have about the long term as a business owner, carry that with you in your investment, but you need a little bit of realism about the short term. We will always have the tariffs. We will always have the kind of AI debates. It might change form next week. You'll always have those short term things. Zoom out, look at the long term, and let that optimism work for you.
I really like that advice because I think as small business owners, we have such beliefs in ourselves and looking to the future, and we know where it can go to. So fingers crossed we'll all listen to that amazing advice. Dara, you talked about AI and tariffs there. They're definitely 2 major trends at the moment. Garrod and Anne-Marie, what else do you see impacting the pension and investment landscape?
Well, for me, auto-enrolment is a huge part of what the pensions landscape is looking like. So from January, there's going to be a lot more focus put on it. So what we're advising small, medium enterprise businesses to do now is get advice early. So they're not just going to be hit and then everyone is auto-enrolled and then there's panic and chaos in January. So the Simplified first topic was auto-enrolment, and that has gone out to some SME owners. But really what we're asking is for them all to make contact with us to get a full financial review, to talk about them growing you as a business owner, but also for their employees and what's going to happen when that happens.
Yeah, and I think it's never so important to meet with your advisors and get that good direction on the best options, because maybe the option is to bring those uncovered employees into the occupational pension net and different things. So there are certainly many options there for them. And I suppose the broader investment front, the Department of Finance undertook a review last year as part of the Fund's 2030 strategy. And this is looking at the whole investment landscape in Ireland, but particularly Ireland has an incredible ecosystem for funds, but it doesn't have that appeal to the average Irish customer, the typical commercial investor. And I suppose we at the Chartered Accountants Ireland have put input into that process. And I suppose some of the key things we'd see would be the taxation of ETFs and similar products. And the rules don't really encourage investment. So you have things like deemed disposal rules after 7 years, which really is contrary to the whole point of these funds, which is that compound annual growth. So we are hoping to see some real positive change in the tax side of funds and similar type investments. just really to unlock savings. But as well as that, I think there does need to be an information campaign as well to really, to Dara's point there, to explain to people that cash isn't safe. It might be safe when things are really bad, but even then you still need to make your money work for you, So I think hopefully we will see some positive change in the upcoming budget, or at least some direction as to what we can expect around the fund landscape. But I think the big one that you need to be aware of at the moment is this deemed disposal rule. But I think if you are looking to start investing, by the time that comes round, I'm hopeful that rule will be gone, but that's just speculation. But certainly that review that's ongoing is quite hopeful.
And just to Garrod's point there as well, and I think is very well made. Like, obviously, I'm biased given the industry that I work in. I really believe that we should be investing, we should be growing our wealth, and things like the taxation treatment on kind of standalone investments aren't ideal. The more we can remove those hurdles, the more we can put our own money to productive use in our own economy, which is just a good story for us all. In the meantime, though, things like a pension structure do avoid a lot of those pitfalls, right? And it's a really good way of people getting to grips with investment strategies, getting used to long-term investment strategies. So if we do begin to see the landscape change on the taxation side and things become a bit more attractive outside the pension, you've already got your head around how it works and the benefits that it can deliver.
Excellent. It seems like there's some things we can do now and some things that we're looking towards for the future, but always keeping our minds open, I think.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, these trends and so many other factors must be affecting how small business customers feel. It's important to remember there is support out there. How can AIB support small businesses coming up to November and beyond?
We're there hopefully the whole year for them, and the benefits for any small, medium and enterprise business out there is to meet with ourselves in the branches, our financial planning advisor or specialist. And what we hope to give to them, Gráinne, is peace of mind that they can, their family, their staff and their business is protected if something were to happen to them. The continuity of their business to keep track of running it smoothly in a crisis. The tax efficiency growth that you covered in protecting, getting money out of the company into their pensions in a tax efficient way. And really importantly, succession planning for giving them clear solutions in transfer of ownership of business if anything were to happen to them. Wealth building is really, really important, that they can put profits from their company into their own name in a tax efficient way. And then the cash, Dara, you spoke about inflation, to get the cash that's in their business to work harder from them than leaving it sitting on a deposit account. One comprehensive review. So this is a timely thing for them to come in and sit down, and it brings everything together for them in one review to grow their wealth, protect their business and to secure their future down the line.
I've learned so much today, and I think it puts my own thinking cap on what I need to do to plan for the future and plan for now. So thank you all so much for that. We're coming to the end now, and we've certainly had a lot of food for thought. Garrod talked about tax season readiness, preparing now for timely returns and identifying what tax reliefs there are. In the long term, pensions can help maximise wealth, especially for company directors, while the EIS also offers valuable tax relief. Dara offered advice around investing as a way to grow excess wealth faster than the rate of inflation. As he said, the three key things to remember are to seek professional advice, avoid overconcentration, and to be a realistic optimist. Last but not least, Anne-Marie reminded us how AIB can help. They provide advice and support for businesses that ultimately helps them grow. Garrod, Chartered Accountants Ireland often run webinars related to tax. Are there any coming up that our viewers might be interested in?
Yeah, so we have our annual tax conference will be coming up in November, and again that's open to non-members who wish to join. And we will also later, or in spring, have an employment tax conference, which might be of particular interest to the small business owners in this call, where you're going to get a good overview of some of the key things to be thinking about for 2026.
Anne-Marie, for someone looking to contact an advisor, where should they go?
They can go into any of their local branches to meet with their business advisor, or they can go onto aib.ie/make a plan, or contact a financial planning advisor or specialist.
We covered a lot today, so if you didn't catch everything or you feel you need more information, we'll be sending on a one-sheeter and other resources in a follow-up email in the coming days. Keep an eye on your inbox for future webinars in the Simplified series. Next time, we'll be exploring business protection for small businesses. Finally, thanks once again to our guests, Garoj, Anne-Marie and Dara, for their time and expertise. You've been amazing. And thanks to each of you for tuning in to Simplified. See you next time.